We're almost 2 weeks away from round one. It's getting very exciting now. We're going to see plenty of preseason action this week and the following week as well. And hopefully we do get a clearer picture on our potential cash cows from 350 and below. I had a few people reach out to me, and understandably so. The positions right now aren't locked in for a lot of these cheapies. And what I will say, first of all though, is that this price point is always pretty well up in the air until round one comes along. Last year we looked at, our centre pairing of Strange and Kaoliro in the early preseason and, fairly late as well. And then it was like, we probably aren't going to get Kaoliro. And we didn't for the first bunch of weeks there. There was plenty of other guys that we were looking at that never got their spot in the end. There were guys that end up popping up as pretty decent cash cows last year and have over previous years as well, that weren't in our calculations until the final round one team list. And we're likely to see that again. It happens every year. But also, with these 350k and below guys, there's plenty of players that could potentially play round one or round two or round three even, that we may not see past that point. Job security is definitely an issue. So I think that needs to be taken into account, and that has been from a few people that have reached out to me as a bit of a concern for their side. What we do have to note though, no matter how many we get, no matter how many good cash cows that we get, there's going to be a few poor ones. But for the most part, it's hard to go, if you get an opportunity in the starting side or you're expected to get 40 minutes or something like that, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to not at least make 50 to 80k and be okay at worst and make a little bit of cash. There's going to be the few that make plenty, like we saw with Galvin last year, and he kind of came into the fray right as that last trial came on. I was interested in him, and some people did take him in round one, but others, like myself, grabbed him in round two or round three. So there are going to be things that pop up that show that these guys are going to be good, and there's also worries as well. And what you do need to look at with your side, and you got to base things off round one, and that's going to be the hard round one team list, and that's going to be the hard thing with it being split. But you need to have some type of guys in line, and if the cash cows don't come through like we hoped, the 350k and below, then there's going to be some changes that you need to make in your side, and you have to adjust accordingly. If we don't get the cash cows that we want, if we don't get the 7, 8, 9, 300, 350k and below guys, then we will have to adjust, and we may have to pick a few more guys around the 400, 415, 430, 450 mark, and we might have to drop down from one of the guns just so we can facilitate a team that can still make some money. And you need to be fluid with that in your thoughts and with your round one team. So we'll go through it, just a few of the guys and sort of the worries that we can have with them making this side. And we've got a few here up top. Obviously, Jamie Humphries there. Not sure if he's going to be the 14. He's having to go at 6 this week. But if he's the 14, then we don't want to select him. And Yongi's probably the main guy. It's pretty much him and Sandon Smith that we're pretty confident that they're going to get their slot in the side. And he's still 350k. Like, he's not a basement guy at all. He has less worries, I think, than a lot of the guys. And in previous years, we may have had sort of 3 or 4 guys that we were fairly confident on, and then we're waiting on team lists from there. We've got a fair bit less info, I'd say, this year as well. We've got some false reports from training. We've had some pretty interesting reports as well with, the Katoga, Geimer, these kind of guys hanging on the edge, which has come to fruition with Katoga. They're starting in the trial with Cartwright on the bench this week. We've also seen it with Fletcher Sharp that it's actually been true. So there are a couple of things that we have seen, but there was actually more last year, and I think we'll find out more and more over the next week or two, obviously. The other thing to note, guys, is injuries. We have trials this week with half the teams are naming fairly full-strength squads. There will be injuries that come out of this, and we saw that in the Warriors game where they had DWZ come off with a pretty bad injury to his wrist. So we're going to see that from different teams, and different cash scales are going to pop up along the way. So I just wanted to come in and ease your minds a little bit on the cash cow situation. If it really doesn't work out, then we will have to adjust our teams, and even if you do pick a couple of big dogs, whether it's Cleary and Yo, or you're picking Fogarty, these types of guys that are playing in Vegas, AFB, you're picking Hines, Iro, Wilton, whoever it's going to be, for those teams that are playing over there, Fisher Harris, Barnett, all these types of guys, right? You will still have enough cash to do some maneuvering around. As I said, whether you drop down a gun and replace them with a mid-range, which allows you to then go up with a cheapie to a mid-range, it's just going to depend on how the situation unfolds. A lot of us are looking at getting as many good cash cows as we can, but if the opportunity doesn't present and we don't get the cash cows, then we will have to pivot the strategy. And that's where you need to be very flexible and not very rigid at all in your round one teams with the split team lists. Make sure that you do have a couple of options. And if the one guy that you're wanting in a gun situation, or whether it's, IPAP or Bateman and these types of guys that you might be looking at, Zach Hosking, if that doesn't work out, then you need to have an alternative option to switch to. And that's where something that Mitch does really well, who we had on the Team List podcast, go and check that one out. That was awesome. He just speaks about having so many different drafts, and he'll be ready to pivot to certain different guys if the situation presents and that player that he wanted isn't ready to go. So let's go through a little bit further. Guys like Nwangani Tawaze, it's a three-way battle for the centers. And, if let's just say he does play in round one, but he doesn't play really well or defensively he's poor, they could easily bring in Rob Toyer or Billy Smith. And that's the same with Rob Toyer as well. We're not sure which one of these guys is going to be locked onto a spot. You'd imagine we're going to get one of these two, and they could probably both be decent options, like I spoke about in the player analysis videos. And go back and check those out, guys. Gone through each position in the guns category, the value category, and also the cash cow category, and just finished up with Mark in that recent wing fullback cash cows. And I think he could do a solid job in that center spot for the Roosters, who should still be a top 8 team, regardless of how many players they've lost, because they were absolutely stacked last year. And they might actually perform, not better, but I think they should still perform pretty decent given all the guys that they're going to be in their 17 are high quality. And you might have guys like Egan Butcher and stuff missing still who would make the bench on pretty much every other team. So that kind of stuff's interesting there. And so we should get at least one pretty solid, consistent player from that Roosters cash cow situation. And we'll find out the rest very, very soon. Guys like Will Price and Ethan Sanders are probably next cab off the rank in certain positions. We've got Price, who's likely the backup fullback. With Sanders, you're looking at him being the backup half if we happen to lose Fogs, and would obviously play 6 if Strange was to go down as well. But this is that 350 range, which is, a little bit scary at times. We've got Carter Gordon, who is having some back issues. I would love to see Oren Keeley get an opportunity, so keep an eye out on him. Siwa Wong is in the 13 role this week, so if he happens to get that and they do keep Radley on the edge and Nat Butcher goes to the bench or something like that, then Wong could be interesting again. So again, we don't know exactly how it's going to play out in terms of options. Blake Moser, does he get the opportunity off the bench? Do we see someone like Corey Pakes at 300k? Does he get an opportunity to come out and do a good job? If Appy was to get injured, De Silva's there as an option that could score really well. We've got Isaiah Tass, who I've been talking about him as a potentially solid option, but is he actually going to play all right on the wing? He hasn't got incredible stats there, and last year was pretty poor. Mamazelis is the other one that we think should be locked in, but minutes-wise, we're unsure at this point, with Humphreys likely to be a 14, but I think you can go into the start of the season pretty well locked in on Mamo. I think you can get one of those centers for the Roosters. So let's just say it is Rob Toyer that does line up in round one. You'll take him. You'll take Yongi. You'll take Sandon Smith. So there could be 4 cheapies already at 320 and 350. Let's say 320 and below if we're not taking Mark. Yeah, so it becomes interesting. Danny Levi was the starting 9 last year, so that worked out well at the price point. But Tamale's going to be there. He has some worries around his position in round 2, but it'd be cool to see him in the trial, and then obviously in Vegas, if he gets the shot, is he good enough to keep that spot? And if he is, I think he can make some money. So there's one that could work out okay. You got Charlie Geimer. If he happens to get an opportunity at some point, then sweet. But at the moment, it looks like he's going to be behind Hopgood and probably gets a spot on the bench. Ty Munro, as was pointed out in the comments, thanks for that. He does seem to get those runaway tries, and that's why his meters gained were up last year, so that makes sense. But he has plenty of talent and will get his opportunity in the All-Stars game and is likely to be on the wing for the South. So at 300k is a decent one as well. But he has worries in terms of being a great scorer or not. We mentioned Pakes there that could do a good job. We've got Valmarga, who likely to be on the bench, but is going to potentially be starting on the edge this week. So yeah, he becomes interesting. Does Laban eventually move into an edge starting role as well? He's playing in the All-Stars game as well. Brett Hayden could even become an option. No, I'm kidding. Guys, don't yell at me. Braden Hayden will never be an option again, no matter what he's priced at, even if he got to 230, which it happens sometimes. Royce Hunt, does he become an option in that Tigers side? Does he get that 30 plus minutes and have the opportunity to go near that point a minute again and average near 30? If he can do that, that's a very simple cash maker at 275. As you can tell, guys, as I'm going through this, there are options. Options going to pop up at certain times, and there's going to be guys like Blake Steep and Ben Takura that if things go the right way for them, if there's an injury, they could come in and do a decent role as well. Can't believe Tom Jenkins is. I thought he was going to come out, do pretty well, but hasn't been the case so far. You got Tapua with the Sharks. That again, if there's injuries in that pack, he could potentially get himself to 30 minutes, and that could be really helpful for him as well. Hasn't had that chance yet. Latufenu, if there's injuries in the halves this weekend, you've got him. Widamu Greg, we know, can do a job. You've got Halasima, who's on the way up for the Wars as well. Gordon Chen Kum Tong. We went through past Jake Simkin, who's actually a fair bit more expensive, but if Croker's out for a little bit longer, he could be the guy. Sandon Smith, who we mentioned, is likely to be in that spot. Jackson Purdue could keep that centre spot if he starts well, and they play Laybutt through Cup a little bit, and if there's an injury in the centres, then that could happen. But he's the one that he's got big question marks around him right now. Jake Turpin, if there's an injury to Reid Marnie as well in these trials, there's so many things that could happen in this section here. We've got Zion moving to the Dogs as well, another cheapie on the horizon. Isaac Fasil Maui, I think he's in a bit of strife, to be fair, to get a chance, but he's playing in the trial this week with Tino and RCG out. He'd need a few injuries. Jaden Barrell at 250 again. If Blake happens to miss a game one time in his career, then he'll be awesome. You got Stafford Toa, who again is one injury away. Guys, injuries, they happen. It's footy. You got Katoga there at 250. That if he gets to start, he could be a trap, but he could also be great for a month or something like that. If he starts well, we'll see what he looks like in the trial. You've got Marion Seve, who's one injury away, I think, from being back in that in that centerfold. And they do have what's his name, young fella from rugby union that's come over, Leo. He's meant to be pretty good as well, so he might be just ahead of Seve. But we know things can happen, and plenty can change, and these guys could get an opportunity. As we mentioned, we haven't gone through Toa yet, Rob Toa, who's at 230k. But Kai O'Donnell, I think for me, if there's one more injury in the edge, I think he goes to that slot unless they play Lawton there. You got Jack Cole, who we haven't mentioned, that could be in with a chance. You got Jesse McLean, Rob Darby, Tom Duffy. All Duffy's a really solid chance, I think, to start if Clifford is out. But does he keep his spot? There's a worry there on that one for sure. But again, one injury. If Dearden was to go down, oh god, I can't think of that. That would hurt me too much. But he's straight in that side anyway. So, Rob Darby is probably next in line as well. Jesse McLean, likely next in line. Plenty will happen. Don't we say it again? Injuries can happen. That's for sure. Sam Healy looks really, really good as the backup 9 as well for the Wars after Freddie Lussick, if that was the way they played it. If Connor Watson was to go down, Moriarty could come in. There's plenty of guys here that are one slot away. Ryan Couchman, these types of players that could come straight into this side. So I think we've gone over this enough. Mitch Woods, he's close as well. Rob Toya. That's probably it, I think. I think we're down to the end. Yeah. That's it, guys. Be ready to adjust. Number one, if things don't go right, have some flexibility. Know the types of players that you do want if things change in the team list after Vegas. And did I say it again? Be flexible. Be ready to go if things go right. And we will always end up with the cash cows. It always seems to be the case come round one. Something happens, the injuries, or a little out of character. There's 5%, of team lists that end up pretty strange, and we do end up with a value guy that you can pick at that cheap price. So you can collect some guns, and there's going to be some decent mid-range guys as well. if we happen to see that lineup that you got from the Eels and that seems pretty consistent, then and like someone like Kelma Tuolangi is the safer option in that edge, then he could get that spot as well and keep it and play big minutes and do pretty well. So there's options like that. We'll see what happens with guys like Seyfarth. If he doesn't get the spot, is it like Ruben Porter or do they bring a cheapie in? There's options to be had at certain points there. So look out for those and just be ready for when it all unfolds. As long as you can change at the drop of a hat, then I think you'll be fine heading into round one. Keep learning, keep watching these preseason trials. These are the biggest things you need to see now heading into the season, and make sure you do listen out, obviously, to my channel, my podcast there. If you're in groups and stuff, you'll see information pop up. Plenty of stuff going on Twitter with different guys like Barry Tui giving information and listening to NRL Physio and all that kind of stuff, and you'll have a cracking season, guys. So trust the process. Just wait for things to pan out. I'm not going to be touching my squad until at least after these preseason trials this week and seeing what happens with them and then making a decision from there. So thanks, guys, for tuning into this one. If you are interested in the private group and everything that's involved in that, have a quick look in the description. You won't be disappointed if you do join. Third year now, and we're getting bigger and better every year. And please do look to subscribe or follow the YouTube and the podcast. You're all legends. We'll catch you in the next one.